Depending on how you were raised, you probably have certain thoughts and views on debt. If it's good or if it's bad. Like so many Americans nowadays, whenever they hear debt, they automatically think of someone drowning in credit card debt from buying unnecessary things that they didn't need with money they didn't have and spending it on things they just couldn't afford. But what if I was telling you there's huge benefits of using debt to your advantage and actually making money by using debt? And one of the best ways to use debt is to leverage it to buy real estate investments. So in today's video, I'm going to go over the best ways you can use debt to your advantage and make you some money. Hi, and welcome to my channel. My name is Moynihan. I'm a real estate agent and investor based out of New Hampshire. If you're looking to buy, sell, or invest around the area, feel free to hit me up. If you want to follow kind of more of my day-to-day stuff, what I do as a real estate agent and an investor, feel free to give my Instagram a follow. I'm there every day, active, posting on stories and reels, giving some short form content and just providing value on there also, so feel free to give that a follow. And if at any point this video gives you some value, make sure to hit the like and subscribe button, as I do release weekly real estate related content. So let's dive into how debt can actually be a good thing for you and how you can actually use it to make you some money. So as children, we mainly learn how money works from the people around us, like our family or our parents, whoever's really close to us growing up, and they're the ones that we kind of follow their footsteps of how money actually happens. And chances are, if your parents were living paycheck to paycheck, using credit cards to survive, and just strictly getting by with bills and not actually making profit or investments, chances are that's how you're going to be, because that's your view on money. Money is kind of seen as a negative, and debt is just seen even more as a negative because it takes even more money away from you. And that's just going to be kind of your viewpoint on money and life. And there's a good reason for that, is because you just simply don't know any better. But if you were raised in a scenario where your parents were actually really good with money, they were making a lot of money, and they kind of taught you about investments and how investments actually work, chances are when you grow up and become an adult, you're going to be more financially responsible and in a better financial position than the first person. And the reason being is just because of what you were grown up to believe and what money was associated with. And like, if your parents were investing in real estate, chances are you kind of got that as a kid of how real estate investing worked and how they actually use leverage to make money off of that. Now, for my scenario, I was kind of a little bit in the middle. My parents didn't necessarily have money that they were investing in, but they also weren't like completely living off credit cards or anything like that. But a lot of my money stuff came from reading once I actually became an adult. I was always good at saving as a kid, but I never knew what to do with it. So I knew money was important, and I knew life is easier if you have more money, essentially. But I never knew like what to do with it and how to grow it. And that I kind of really started learning on my own once I graduated high school and started reading books. It's funny, I started reading books after high school, but it helped a bunch. Okay, so what do I mean when I'm saying all this stuff about debt and your viewpoints on money? So essentially what I'm saying is debt can be good if it's making you money. So if you're using debt to buy an asset, as Robert Kiyosaki says in his book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, buying an asset makes you money. Therefore, it's a good debt, because you're using it to make money. Now, the other hand that Robert Kiyosaki touches on in Rich Dad, Poor Dad is bad debt. And bad debt essentially is what he calls buying anything that's a liability. So anything that costs you money and doesn't give you a return on money is seen as a liability. But one thing I do want to keep in mind is when you are purchasing good debt and using debt to make you money and buy an asset, there still is that risk that you're taking, because you're taking out debt to buy an asset, that if that asset doesn't perform or it doesn't work the way you planned it to work, it could not make money, and you're still liable for that debt, which therefore that asset quickly became a liability, and that good debt quickly switched over to bad debt. So just keep that in your brain when you're thinking about this and looking at real estate investing. So simply put, think of good debt as buying an asset, something that's going to make you money, and then think of bad debt as buying liabilities. They only cost you money. And in Robert Kiyosaki's book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, he actually got a lot of heat for this, because he actually said that buying a personal home is considered a liability. At least buying a personal home with a mortgage is considered a liability, because that debt, yes, it's for your personal home, but all it's doing is taking money out of your pocket each month. But the flip side to that argument, and where people kind of argued with him on, was no matter what position you are in, you're going to need a place to live, and that place to live usually costs money. So like, it is considered technically bad debt, but again, you do need a place to live as a human being. So it's kind of just figuring that out and like kind of your own viewpoint on that, because it can be seen as both, because technically it only does take money out and you're not getting really a return on your single family unless you sell it for a profit, but chances are that's not the real reason why you bought the single family. So when it comes to using good debt in real estate, what do I mean by it? It's buying investment properties. And the reason this is seen as good debt, again, is because buying an investment property, you're buying a property that is going to pay you each month. This usually in rent, because you're renting out your, say, single family, multifamily, whatever type of real estate you buy, you're renting out, therefore creating a return on your money. And to have it actually be considered, I guess, good debt, you want to actually have a return on your money. So you're kind of looking for cash flow of some sort to have profit into your pocket after using this debt to be able to purchase it. Because there are some scenarios where people will actually basically buy a place and it doesn't cash flow, but it covers itself. So essentially they're kind of buying because they're hoping for future appreciation, and they're hoping for their payout to be on the sale of the property after the prices have went up. That's when they cash out. So they're okay with the property basically just sustaining itself because it's not making additional cash flow, but it's bringing in enough cash where it pays for itself and it doesn't really require anything out of the person's pocket. It's just not putting anything in the pocket until they do sell it. But again, that's a risk. If appreciation doesn't happen, or they need to get out before they actually appreciate as much as they wanted to, they could be left in a scenario that they weren't really wanting, I guess. But there's still some people who think you just shouldn't get into debt at all, because the way they look at it, no matter what type of debt it is, it's bad debt. This is like people like Dave Ramsey who say that you should buy everything in cash, even your house, including your investment properties, all that. For me, that just seems kind of ludicrous, and you're kind of like missing opportunities that you could take if you utilize good debt. Again, I'm not saying be irresponsible with it, but actually utilize it so it makes you more money and you become wealthier and are able to help more people. Because say you have $200,000 saved up in cash, that's a lot. Say it's enough to buy one duplex. So you buy one duplex, $200,000 cash, you have no mortgage, you still have some expenses each month like property taxes and insurance, and then depending on what type of utilities and all that you have covered. Say you have a duplex, you rent it out, you make $2,000 a month in rent, but after a couple expenses, not including a mortgage because it's in cash, say you cash flow $1,500 per month off that duplex. Not bad, right? You bought it 200 grand, you're making 1,500 bucks a month. Not a horrible scenario. But if you utilize good debt, use that $200,000, you divide it into 4 equal chunks of $50,000, and with those $50,000 chunks, you put 25% down payments on 4 duplexes. So now you're controlling $800,000 worth of real estate. You have 8 total units of rental real estate instead of just the 2 that you bought cash. So now you have some mortgages, but say after your mortgages and your expenses, you're cash flowing $500 per door, which isn't, it's a little bit high kind of in some scenarios. So of course, kind of put this on to where your numbers are, but a number I like to shoot for is around $500 per door. At $500 per door, you're making $4,000 worth of cash flow each month because you utilize loans and because you leverage debt. Where in the other scenario, yes, you have no debt, you have no payments, but you are only making $1,500 a month on that $200,000 return. Where the other way, you're making $4,000 a month on a $200,000 return, and you're controlling more assets, which also kind of protects you because, one, when appreciation works, now it's working for your 4 properties instead of just 1 property. And with having 8 total units, say you have 1 vacancy, you have 7 out of 8 units rented, still bringing you in money, where if you had 1 vacancy in the other scenario where it was cash, you have half your profits are gone because you have a vacancy. So it almost protects you too to be able to take out those mortgages. And there's a bunch of tax benefits that, of course, I'm not a certified accountant or anything like that. I'm just a real estate agent. But with that, there's a bunch of tax benefits that you can use because you took out the loans, and you can write off certain things. So there's a bunch of benefits you can use with good debt. Again, only use good debt if you know you're going to be making money. If it's one of those things where it's like kind of a startup or certain situations like flipping and stuff, there is risk involved. So like, utilize it at your own risk. But I believe rental real estate property investing is looked at as good debt as long as your numbers pan out and you're able to make cash flow. I think it's a great way to look at rental real estate and to expand your portfolio, because if you're only buying properties cash, even if you have a great paying job, it's still hard to grow, because buying where you could buy with $50,000 down payments instead of $200,000, it's just going to take that much longer to grow if you have to wait for $200,000 just to grab 2 units. So that's what I'm trying to say with that. So I guess to wrap all this up, it's going to depend on how you were raised. Because if you were raised with the negative connotation of money, where money is bad, money is evil, debt is even worse, because once you get in that debt hole, there's no way to get out of it, of course that's going to be your view on money. But I kind of want you to ask yourself, why is that my view on money? Is it my view on money because that's actually what I truly believe? Or is it just because that's the way I was raised and that's what my parents looked at money from? Because chances are that's how their parents treated money. But looking at it and like actually learning about money for yourself, you'll realize maybe debt isn't as bad as everyone comes across. It's just those people who say debt is bad are very irresponsible with their credit cards and the way they utilize their debt. If you use it for good and help you expand and grow your wealth, that's great. Now, if you just all you do is buy liabilities and shit that you can't afford, that's not good. Don't get credit cards. If you can't be in self-control of spending money, I highly suggest you avoid using debt. Avoid using credit cards. But if you're actually responsible and have some self-control, I think it can be a great way to grow your wealth. So with all that being said, I hope this added some type of value to you. Hope it kind of opened your eyes on what good debt is and why people say there is good debt and bad debt, and kind of a little bit of how Robert Kiyosaki tied it into his Rich Dad Poor Dad book, where it's just a lot is how you're raised for one, but also just like what you're actually utilizing and purchasing with that debt is going to classify if it's good debt or bad debt. So not all debt is bad. It just depends on how you spend debt. So with that being said, my name is Shane Moynihan. Again, I'm a real estate agent and investor based out of Keene, New Hampshire. And if you're looking to buy, sell, or invest, feel free to reach out to me. If you want to follow my daily stuff, just follow my Instagram. And if this kind of provided value, I hope it deserved a like. And again, hit that subscribe button as I release these weekly videos about real estate and about real estate investing and how you can make some more money. So without further ado, I'll catch you next week.